Hey, welcome to Fresh Air at 5, episode 145. So this week's episode has all manner of things from Evolving with Gratitude to the Optimalist podcast to Everyone Comes From Somewhere, a new to me podcast. So take a listen to that because that's quite fantastic with Dr. Jody Carrington. And I thank you for coming along and enjoying Fresh Air at 5. I hope you enjoy it. I enjoy doing this, and so yes, it's my way of giving back to my community and all that. So yes, talk to you soon. Have a fabulous day. And without further ado, episode 145, Fresh Air at 5.
I'm Chris Stutchko, co-host of the 9th Grade Experience podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Brian Carpenter. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to exercise by walking about my neighborhood to take in podcast content, then reflect in an unedited video, which I finally post to my Twitter channel. This podcast will be a regular collection of the audio from these selfie videos. You can follow me on Twitter at FreshAirAt5 or check out my website, briancarpenter.com, for other content I have created and collected.
Hey, PLN, it's Monday, November 6, 2023, out for Fresh Air at 5 this morning, and it is a now not raining day. I woke up, it rained, and so I stayed inside for a bit, and I listened to episode 76 of Evolving with Gratitude with Generative Rauch, and she has on guest Dr. Talisa Sullivan. So I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but I got out the door now, which is great, to get some kilometers under my feet and get some fresh air, because that's so important to me. All right, this past weekend on Friday night, I attended TEDx Abbotsford at the University of the Fraser Valley, and it was fantastic. We heard 8 speakers with ideas that matter talk to us about all manner of things, from artificial intelligence to wildfire management to exercising in the midst of air pollution, and also indigenous understanding and the secret that all Canadians should know about our history. So it was very, very awesome and fantastic. Felt inspired. Had a good weekend with my family. Did some things around the house. Watched Formula 1. And now here we are on Monday morning. It is Remembrance Day week, so I'm helping prepare some content that our students have created for our Remembrance Day assembly this coming Friday. And then, yes, it will be an assembly on Thursday, because we have Pro-D on Friday. Okay, I listened to episode 76 of Evolving with Gratitude with Dr. Talisa Sullivan and Generative Rauch as they talked about the Q10 equity in education and how it's so important that we understand the whole person and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Where does he get those ideas from the Blackfoot Nation and all those things? So Dr. Talisa, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. And you know what? I'm going to come right back. I'll be right back. All right, one more thing for November 6, 2023. As I'm continuing my thoughts about episode 76 of Evolving with Gratitude, as Lainey talks about equity in education and the Q10 with Dr. Talisa Sullivan, who is very involved. I'm not sure if she's the founder of it, but she's been in education for a long time and sees the value in the Q10. What is the Q10? It is a number of different arms of caring for students, from PBIS to UDL, Universal Design for Learning, to SEL, to all the different areas, growth mindset, that we as educators should be well versed in. And Talisa, as you said, teachers need to be well versed in these things. And then, I thought to myself, my initial reaction was, I ain't got time for that. I got time to learn stuff, But to say that I'm well versed in all of these areas and then keeping up with the current situation in all of these areas, that's a lot. But as a whole human being, the more I am trained, the better I can deal with different situations and different students. My understanding of, human connections and interactions, I did some professional development recently on that. Helped me work with a couple of students this past week at my school that had I not gone to that training, I would not have had those tools in my back pocket at that moment. So, there's a conference coming up in Irvine, California, December 7th and 8th, and Lainey's going to be giving a presentation at the conference with Dr. Talisa Sullivan, as she is one of the organizers of the conference. And so check out Q10, Equity in Education, and it's an international conference. Thank you for the thoughts. At first it seems overwhelming, but then it just seems like it's my responsibility that I need to be able to care for my students completely, whatever we call it. All right. Thanks so much. Have a great day, everybody. The last thing for November 6, 2023, coming around the circle of my walk, I turned on the Generative Age, episode 9 with host Alana Winnick out of New York, powered by NiceGate. And you should take a listen to this if you are interested in furthering your understanding of the breadth and depth of artificial intelligence that's coming at us like a hurricane. And it's important that we step into these learnings about this new technology. There is so much that we are expected to do as teachers, and this is another one of those things. But we are teachers, and we need to be aware of the many things. So I'm here listening now, and I listened to episode 9 as Alana Winnick has on guest Vicki Davis, the Cool Cat teacher. And I've been a big fan of Vicki Davis for many years, as she has the 10-Minute Teacher podcast. And if you go back into, probably episode 80, 70 or so of Fresh Air at 5, you will hear me talking about the 10-Minute Teacher podcast and the things that I've learned in her podcast. And so for, getting some educational thoughts into your head on a regular basis, and 10 minutes of it only, Vicki Davis brings us a short, self-produced podcast. So thank you, Vicki. Appreciate your input into education. And here on the Generative Age, as you're talking about artificial intelligence and human intelligence, you are bringing us, a connection between how we as humans need to supervise the AI so that we can understand what the AI is giving us. Yes, we have assistive opportunities that can help us out, but we need to be able to supervise and make decisions about these things. So take a listen to this. This is part 1, episode 9, as part 1 of a conversation that Lana has with Vicki, and it's so good. So yes, we have it around us. It's here, and we need to be able to understand it so that we don't get deceived by it. All right, thanks all. Have a great day. I will. Bye. Hey, PLN, November 7, 2023. Good morning to you. I hope you're doing well. It is misty out here. Not pouring rain, but the mist, I'm soaked. But it's great to get out and to enjoy some fresh air this morning, to clear my head and to make some connections. We go through this thing called life, and we are connected to people and different situations and events that happen, but do we really stop to think about the connections? And this morning, as I'm listening to a New to Me podcast, and I'll tell you why I'm listening to this new podcast in a moment, but we hear the words of another, and they impact us. It was October 20th at about 8:15 a.m. when this lady with her partner, her business partner, comes crashing into the theater at North Delta going, "We're trying to get in. And I'm like, "Good morning, Dr. Jody Carrington." and she was going to be our speaker for our My PETA conference. 3 sessions in the theater. My job was to take care of her and make sure that we were able to get the signal out of the theater to our online audience at home. And she's a big deal. Jody is a big deal. And, you know, before this, honestly, Jody, I knew of you only by name because you were on our posters. But I didn't know anything about you. I didn't know anything about your practice, the books you wrote, things like that. I had it in your bio that I was going to read on stage in a moment, but I didn't know you at all. And since then, I have grown to know Jody a little bit more. She gave 3 sessions, and we had a train wreck of a first session with the audio out, and that precipitated us having another session that we had last night, and she did an encore performance for us on Zoom to 80 of our members. All of our My PETA members were invited to this, but she gave an encore performance, and we recorded it so we could share it with the rest of our community. But I'm going to come back right back, and I'll tell you more. Hang on. One more thing for November 7, 2023. Okay, continuing on my story about Dr. Jody Carrington at My PETA Fall Conference at North Delta Secondary, and she was talking in the first session about reconnection, and I could barely focus because the audio and technical problems that we were having in the theater was not good for our online community, and it was a struggle. It was really, really hard because I didn't know how to solve the problem. My partner up in the streaming booth, he was trying to solve the problem, and the techs in the school, they were trying to solve the problem, and we just couldn't figure it out at that moment while the thing was happening. And Jody's given a fantastic presentation about reconnection, and we got through it. And as we got through it and into the break, we figured out a solution, but that was too late for the first session. We had about 650 people registered online, and they didn't get to hear what she had to say. So there was a lot of tension there. We let some people down, a lot of people down, and we didn't know how to fix it. We got through the day. Our in-building people had a fantastic experience. The online people, they came around and, hey, eventually had a good experience, I hope. But then we had the fallout of processing. Okay, I'm not going to have to tell you all that. But we got Jody back to talk to us last night. And while she was talking, even on the 20th, she says, and I have a podcast. I've got a podcast. And I'm like, you have a podcast? I have a podcast too. Mine's Fresh Air at 5. What's yours? She goes, it's called Everyone Comes From Somewhere. And you know what? At that moment in time with what was going on, are you kidding me? I couldn't even remember what it was called. And I have a pretty good memory for these kinds of things, but I couldn't remember. So anyhow, I have a new to me podcast called Everyone Comes From Somewhere with Dr. Jody Carrington. This morning I listened to the trailer. I listened to episode 1 as she talks about where Everyone Comes From Somewhere is about. And I taught the introduction, and then I think it was episode 1 where she talks about her own story. Amazing, and you need to take a listen. So I'll be right back. The last thing for November 6, 2023, I'm talking about Everyone Comes From Somewhere podcast. It's a hashtag new to me podcast that Jody Carrington has started recently, and she is a clinical psychologist out of Alberta. And she's a speaker, and she talks about how connection and relationship is so important in this life that we walk and live, and how empathy is so necessary. But the only way we can get away from judgment and into empathy is to understand someone's story, where they've come from. So this is a podcast that Jody has started. I think it's 8 episodes old at this point, and I started at the beginning because I wanted to hear what she had to say from the get-go. She's going to be doing every other week interviews, and the in-between weeks she's going to talk about some psychology stuff, stuff that's really important about her experience that she's had. And in episode, I think it was 1 and maybe 2, she talks about her story and where she came from Viking, Alberta. So I didn't know that, and I learned a lot about Jody that you need to listen to this podcast to learn. Because she says that our stories affect how we walk. And our job in this life is to walk each other home and to take care of each other, because that's pretty much all we got. And so those of us that are able to walk others home, we need to be there for them to walk them home at the end of the day. All right, so take a listen to Everyone Comes From Somewhere. Jody, I hope I've done justice, and you forgive me for not listening to this point. But on October 20th, when I said I was going to listen, the lid was flipped, and it wasn't going to work out very good for me to remember. But here we are today. And now you're in my rotation. Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, and I'm glad to know you, Jody Carrington. All right, shout out to my PETA team, Christina Preston, Ingrid, and the rest. And we're glad to bring you our conferences. All right, that's all I got. I'm going to go home, have a cup of coffee, and get on with my day. Okay, bye. Okay, I said it was the last thing for November 7th, 2023 in that last segment, but this is the very last thing now. And I'm going to tell you why, because as I was coming up the hill back towards home, I ran into my friend Bruce and Sophie as they're walking in the mist. And Sophie's the dog, his dog. And I ran into them, and I got talking about how, we had our encore session last night that I just talked about with Dr. Carrington. And, I told them about her and about the podcast. So Jody, I'm going to send the link to your podcast to Bruce. Bruce is my friend in my neighborhood, and he works with adult learners that have special needs and working with them to get them some support as they are going through trades here in BC. Yes. So, and I'm also going to share Lainey Rowell's podcast with him. So yeah, I walked not the usual direction, but I walked with him to connect with him because, I like Bruce. We get along. And, when do we see each other? When we're out walking on the street. So who's the people? I mentioned this, I think, back in episode, it was last spring or something like that, called Who Is Your Bruce? And this is my Bruce. And so Bruce Messman is now, he's part of Fresh Air at 5 and my community around me. So, all right, that's all I got now. And now I'm going to go home and I make some espresso and sip it out of that little tiny cup. I started doing that because I think it's fun. It's different. And I don't know. Yeah, it's a little stronger, and I like the taste of coffee. All right, happy Tuesday. Goodbye. Hey, PLN, it's November 9, 2023. Happy almost the end of the week. Tomorrow's Pro D here, and we've got the last day of school for students today. And I'm excited about the weekend. Actually, I'm going to be going away to Main Island towards Victoria out in the Gulf Islands, and going to be enjoying just being able to put my feet up, getting away from technology, and spending some time with my wife and daughters and friends as we're at my buddy's parents' cabin. All right, so that's going on this weekend. But before that, there's a lot going on. One of those things is that I'm going to be recording with Sarah Candela this afternoon for the Optimalist podcast and talking about how it goes with managing AI and my life and what's going on with that. So I'm looking forward to talking with Sarah. And this morning I listened to the Optimalist podcast with Sarah Candela, and she brings us higher order higher order curiosity. See, curiosity is not a word that comes out of my mouth a whole lot, though I am a curious person, and I do spend some time wondering about some things. But this episode that Sarah brings us talks about how our other impulses other than creativity or curiosity, see, I doesn't come out very often, get squelched by things like creativity or exhaustion or the other emotions that we have and impulses that we have, because curiosity takes some drive, it takes some effort, and we have our divergent or our space-based curiosity that we look at something and we wonder about it. So how does it get expressed though? I think it gets expressed through curiosity, through creativity, and how we show what we are interested in. And it comes out through creativity. Fantastic to hear. I'm considering sharing this with my grade 11 and 12 students at some point, Sarah. So thanks so much. And I'll talk to you this afternoon. Okay, bye. The last thing for November 9, 2023, as I'm coming up the hill to home here, I listened to episode 79 of Evolving with Gratitude with Lady Rowell, as she has on guest Annick Rauch from Winnipeg, Canada. Fellow Canadian, Annick, fantastic, and our paths have never crossed. So this is as close as our paths have crossed, that I'm listening to you talk on Evolving with Gratitude and hearing your story a bit. And I'm really thankful that you are out there doing what you're doing. I'm doing something in a different way similar, being involved in a podcast network and sharing the words of others and bringing them phenomenal people like yourself. And Annick has just released a new book. Thank you, Lainey, for bringing that to our attention as you share and talk about how awesome and fantastic Annick is. It's called Embrace the PheMOMenal Teacher, because she's a mom and a first grade teacher and doing all the things. And we are not expected to do all the things like Annick does, but we are expected to live to our potential in the space that we have, because that is what we're supposed to do. There's a lot going on. And so I encourage you to get the book, read the book, and I will get the book probably in the near future, Annick, and I'm going to pass it along to some of my colleagues. Yes. All right. Thank you, Lainey. Have a fabulous day. And Lainey, yesterday I talked about Bruce and how I ran into my friend Bruce, and you thought that was great. I ran into another neighborhood friend in the dark. Her name is Jen, and she has a husky and walks her husky in the mornings. And so I chatted with her. She's an EA in my district. And yes, it's great to connect with people. And don't forget those connections. Don't forget to stay connected with people around you. All right, that's what I got for today and right now. And so we'll talk to you hopefully tomorrow. Okay, bye. Hey PLN, it is November 10, 2023. Happy Friday to you. And today is a Pro D day for us here in our Abbotsford School District. So learning will be going on. As I'll step into the day today, we had our Remembrance Day assemblies this past week and celebrations. And we talked about the poppy and about veterans and the sacrifice and the freedom that we have here in Canada to go about things the way we do, because so many paid such a price and do every day for our freedom. So thankful for our veterans and our soldiers. Remembrance Day is actually tomorrow, Saturday, but because it's on a Saturday, we get Monday off. So our students have a 4-day weekend here, and many are going to go away and do things with their families. So yes, my family and I were heading out to an island just near Victoria with some friends this weekend. So looking forward to getting away and getting some rest. This morning I listened to episode 202 of the Teaching Champions podcast with Brian Martin, and he has on guest Meghan Lawson, who is, teaching, leaving a teaching legacy is what she's all about. She has a book that just came out back on November 2nd. And this is later in November that I'm listening to. Well, it's a week later. And I listened to this, and it's so encouraging to hear Meghan talk about caring for the people around you every day. The students that we work with and the staff that we work with and those people that are around us, and how we care for them, and how happiness and she started some research that, when we're happier, we're 31% more productive when we're neutral or unhappy or stressed. And I thought that was fascinating. So how do we keep ourselves happier? We make sure that we surround ourselves with people that are happier and talk less about negative things. Yeah, negative things are part of life. Not that we push them away and don't talk about them, but that we have to have a more positive than negative outlook and looking for the good in our days. Thanks so much, Meghan. Thanks so much, Brian. Have a good day. Bye-bye. The last thing for November 10, 2023, listen to Teach Happier with Suzanne Daly as she brings us an episode 10 of season 4 called Be Purple and Be More Purple. And being more purple has to do with the blend of colors between red and blue, the colors of the Democrats and Republicans in the United States, and how it's election week this past week, and how she is talking about being more neutral between those things and less political, and caring for the people in our space regardless of their political bent. And yes, I don't have that same thing here in Canada. We do have parties, but I'm not involved in it the same way, as affected by it possibly as our American colleagues. But there is political stuff going on, but we need to be more as reactive. All right, my battery ran out this morning, so here I am finishing up my recording for the episode of Teach Happier that I listened to. And yes, as I was saying, you know, we need to be mindful of our political involvement in teaching and things like that. And I'm thankful that we have a pretty good space here in Canada, in British Columbia, where we're at. There's some stuff coming down from the Ministry of Education, but you know, that comes from all the time. And yes, all right, we're heading out on a weekend, and we're at the BC Ferry Terminal here, so we're just about to start sailing. So that's all I got. Have yourself a fabulous weekend, and we will see you on the other side of the weekend. Happy Remembrance Day to you. Thank you. Bye.
As my one word for 2021 is appreciate, I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific podcast episodes in the show notes for your learning convenience. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoyed this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can also be found on Voice Ed Radio. Your voice is right here, and on the Education Podcast Network, Podcasts for Educators, Podcasts by Educators. I hope you have a fantastic day and get some fresh air before the day is out, and take care of yourself because you're worth it.